Okay, it's 5 after. I figured we might as well get started. I figured I'd say a few introductory words and hand it over to Joni, who's the expert. Um, for those of you who don't know me, which is most of you, I'm Kevin Parker. I'm the new president of the Greenbelt Community Foundation, and by new, I mean officially since last Thursday. So I'm still learning the ropes a little bit here. So please be patient. If you didn't hear already, this is being recorded, so don't say anything you don't want to go on YouTube. Um, Getting to the whole grant approach, I just want to say a couple of things because Joni's going to cover most of it. One of the things is, I mean, there are a lot of people on here. I don't know if that worries you or not, but this is not a competition. We don't have a quota for the number of grants we give in any cycle. We just look at the merits of the individual grant. So because, Greenbelt Access does better than the Greenbelt Arts Center, that doesn't matter as long as they look satisfactory to us, we'll approve them. There are, believe it or not, three possible outcomes to an application review. I mean, they're the two obvious ones. We look at it and we said, yeah, this, it's a good organization. It, it's a good plan. It covers all the bases. Um, and they've got a budget. We know what the money's going on, and so on and so forth, and we approve it. On the other hand, we can turn stuff down if it's just too vague or whatever. There's not enough information there. But there's also an in-between, and what one of my predecessors called, when doing that situation, is we'll issue something called a get well letter, which means you're kind of close and we need a little more information, and we'll ask for that and then make an updated decision. One of the key things that causes a get well letter is if you're doing something on your own, it's no big deal. But if you're doing something in cooperation with another organization, like you're doing an art show at the New Cafe, you say, Beltway Plaza is going to set aside um, an area for a indoor playground that we're going to build, or we're going to do animation workshops at Spring Hill Elementary. We need something from those people you say are cooperating to say, yeah, they're in this as well. And it just has to be a little letter or something, but please keep that in mind. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say, so I will hand it over to Joni. You got to unmute, Joni.
Oops, sorry. Welcome, everybody. My name is Joni Cohen Mitchell. I don't know why it's acting now. My thing is acting very strange and I can't get it to get from the beginning. So let me try again. It's acting all weird. There it is. Yeah. Oh dear. I might, there we go, but I can't get it to move anymore. So, Kevin, I'm going to have to ask you to share again. I am frozen and unable to move my screen. So I will stop sharing again. But meanwhile, I wanted to introduce myself and have each of you introduce yourself. And I apologize that I am having problems with the Zoom sharing. So my bad. My name's Joni Cohen. I used to be a board member of Greenbelt Community Foundation many years ago. And since then, I've on and off offered the workshop. The grant writing workshop is pretty basic in that what we want to do is give you enough information so you don't need a get well letter. So you know what really is important, what counts, how it counts, and I will walk you through the pieces of the grant. At any point, stop me, ask a question. And like Kevin said, they want to give you the money. It's not about a competition. And this hopefully will give you enough information so that you can just write a good grant and get the money to do the kinds of activities you want. But before we start, can everyone, and I'll just go by who I see on my screen, can everyone just introduce themselves quickly and say what organization they're from? That way, you just know who you're here with. So the first person on my screen to the left is A. Bridges. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and saying what organization you're with. A. Bridges? I don't know who that is. Can you introduce yourself?
Wait a minute.
Oh, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself and just tell us who you are and what organization you're with? Yep. We have lost you. Ed Fallon, do you want to just go ahead and we'll circle back to A. Bridges? You're muted as well.
Oh, okay. No, I'm unmuted, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good.
Okay, Ed Fallon. I'm with Greenbelt Racial Equity Alliance.
Welcome, Matthew Inzio.
Enzio, that's right. I'm Matthew Enzio. I'm a brand new member of Greenbelt Community Foundation, and this is my first meeting.
Oh, Iffy.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah, he's a new
everyone.
board member.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ifi Wabuku. We run a breast cancer organization at the Greenbelt Professional Building.
Great. Yolanda.
Yes, I'm Yolanda Perry at Fountain Club. It's a nonprofit organization, and so is A. Bridges. I think she was having some issues with, being in the car. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. YP.
Same person. That's me. I have both going at
Okay.
one time. So my phone dies, I can hop on with
Okay,
the
I won't ask you
computer.
to introduce yourself twice, Yolanda.
Thank you.
Yes. Can you
Do
hear me?
want to- Yep, we can
Okay,
hear you.
I'm Deb Daniel. I'm with New Deal Cafe.
Welcome. Kimberly Bradshaw.
Hello, Kimberly Bradshaw here. My screen is black. Okay, well, I'm with the Greenbelt City Stars jump rope team.
Hey, thank you. Truck Lay.
Hi, yes, that's me. Hi, my name is Truk. I'm from the Greenbelt.
Sorry.
No worries. I'm from the Greenbelt Art Center.
Welcome, Tatiana.
Hi everyone, I'm Tatiana Reyes. I'm with the Campfire Patuxent.
And Bill, I see your name and didn't see you before.
Bill Phelan? Is that, you're after me, Bill Phelan? Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'm with Greenbelt Community Garden.
Fabulous. Is there anyone I missed inadvertently? No. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So next slide. So here's our agenda. I'm going to review the grant making process. And as I said, at any point, please stop me and ask clarifying questions. I'm going to go over the overview of like the critical parts of the grant and why they matter. And then we'll open up for question and answer that is likely between Kevin and other board members who might want to respond. So that is our agenda. And next slide. Great. So here are some key takeaways. And the reason I start with these is because this is what will prevent you. If you do these, you will not get a get well letter. And this is something we saw over the years. Fill out the entire application. don't leave parts, because that's what's going to prompt the boards to say, well, I don't have enough information. I can't say yes or no. So be sure you do not leave questions blank, and send an email. And at the end of the presentation, I have the Greenbelt Community Foundation email. If you need to get in touch, someone will respond with an answer so that you can just submit a full application. So be succinct and clear in your descriptions. And we're going to kind of go over the pieces of the descriptions and what the Greenbelt Community Foundation is looking for. Both for the narrative and the budget. That's another piece. And I do kind of talk about the budget because that seems to be a bugaboo sometimes for smaller nonprofits that aren't used to doing it. So there is a budget, and then there is a budget template that is attached to the website that you'll use to go through with your application. Have the goals and objectives for the program or activity and a plan on how to measure them. We're going to go over SMART objectives, and then they're not really complicated, but it's just really like, I'm going to do this, and this is how I know I was successful. Really, it's that simple, and GCF is not expecting an evaluation plan with your grant. They just really want to know, because their donors are Greenbelt residents and others. And so we owe it to them to be sure that when we fund a grant, the grant is really clear about how it is going to use the money of its donors. And then document your project. So at the end, don't wait to the end. So if you have activities or you do things in the community, someone's taking a picture, you're doing a little write-up. Not only can the Greenbelt Community Foundation use it as messaging and communications, but it's just a good way. So at the very end that you have a full package to do your final report along with your reconciliation of your budget. Okay, next slide. So there are some, things that the Greenbelt Community Foundation back in my day, and Kevin reviewed this, so I don't think it's changed. So this is why this slide is still here, is number the pages, put the title of your organization, because there's a blind review. So you really want people to be able to know who his application is, excuse me, it's not a blind review. So we do want to know what organization is. So make sure it's just really well labeled and that people can follow along. Pages 1 to 8 is all related to GATE, and they know if something happens that they can, they're missing a page or something's gone off. Remember, this is a group of volunteers, and so it's hard when we have to have a back and forth. You didn't have your budget page, we didn't get the letter of commitment from the 501c3, and it really delays the grant making process. So that's really the last of kind of like the procedural piece. Write passionately and convincingly about why you think this is a worthwhile thing. What's it going to do for the Greenbelt community? What kind of gaps is it filling? Something that isn't happening? Is there a community of people that aren't being well served? Is there an issue that's not being taken care of and your organization wants to? Is there an idea or something in the world that you want to connect Greenbelt residents to? So just tell the committee that's going to be a reviewer, and I'm often on that committee, why you think you should get the money. And don't be afraid to be passionate about it. Passion is really what makes really great writing. And why does Greenbelt need this? Is it redundant to other things happening, or is it really unique? And is it really a value add for the Greenbelt community? And please remember that grants are intended to serve primarily Greenbelt residents. And we say primarily because there are situations in schools and such where you don't have control over who matriculates, but we really are looking for activities and programming that is based in the wider Greenbelt community. And that's another issue, is really looking to serve all of Greenbelt and not just one small pocket, so that everyone can take advantage of the things that you have to offer. Okay, any questions before I go on? Now we're going to kind of pick apart a little bit the application itself. It's a pretty simple and straightforward application. It's a couple of pages of writing really, and then a budget. So please don't feel like you can't do it. Everyone can do this grant. Next slide. So yeah, it's pretty simple, which is why I like to put this up. This is taken right from the grant application. The brief description of the organization. Who are you? Who do you serve? How long you've been around? What do you do? Title of the proposed project, visual arts for disabled populations in, Greenbelt Middle School. I don't know, I'm just inventing, but, tell us what you're going to do. Brief description of the project, because then there's a second page where you go into it in more depth, and I will show you that. Project target area. And again, the committee who is evaluating the projects really tends to look carefully to make sure that all of Greenbelt gets served in a single cycle. I don't know, Kevin, if that's still the case, but when we were doing that before, we always made sure when we gave out grants that all of Greenbelt was served in one way or another. The amount of funding requested, how much do you need to get your project done? And then if it's a nonprofit, then the director or project director would sign it and date it. Believe it or not, that's something that often gets missed, and we have to send it back when we don't have signatures. So next slide. List of board members, including officers and terms. And this is if you're a nonprofit. This does not apply, is my understanding, if you are using a fiscal sponsor of another 501c3. I think you just need a letter. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah, so if you are borrowing the 501c3 status of another organization, don't worry about listing the officers and the terms. That's on them. The brief history of the organization with recent accomplishments. Is this an organization that's been in Greenbelt for a while? Is it brand new? Have you had grant money? Have you done different things? Just so the people reading the application can get a sense of who you are. Names, roles, and qualifications of the people who will be administering the project and seeing to its success. So again, the people reading the application can get a good sense. Oh, this is an after-school program, and it seems like there is, a nonprofit that works in schools and does, this regularly. Organizational budget. This is not what you're requesting. This is also something that sometimes gets a little messed up. How much does your organization have in its budget every year? An income and expense report is great. That can just get attached as an attachment, but it's really to get a sense of a scope. If you're an organization that is really new and has very little funding, and then maybe a couple $1,000s in the bank, and then ask for $18,000. I'm just inventing. The Greenbelt Community Foundation might scratch its head a little bit and say, well, they don't really have a history and demonstrate that they have managed that size of a grant, and we might negotiate, which we have done before, and saying, hey, what if you cut the scope of the project in half and dealt with a $8,000 budget or something like that. The project description. This is the heart of what you want to tell the people who are reading the grant. Yeah, they want to understand a little bit about your budget. They want a little understand about your organization. They want some sort of history of what you've done in the community and how and when you've done it. But this is really why they're giving you the grant. So my advice as someone who at one point wrote a lot of grants, use all of the 3 pages if you can. Tell as much of a story about GATE, about your after school program, about the Greenbelt, about GAC, about, you know, anything that really paints a picture of why they should give you money. Some objectives, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. What are you gonna do? What is the intention of the money that you're asking for? Who the project will serve, ages, gender, location, intention, all those kinds of things. State how this project is a new undertaking. This hasn't been updated, but my understanding is it doesn't matter anymore if it's something you've done before, but the grant itself hasn't been updated on the website. The specific steps to be taken to implement the project. So this is where you say, you know, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to recruit participants. We're going to put something in the Greenbelt News Review, and I'm going to go to all the schools and I'm going to try and recruit. Then we're going to hold 6 workshops or whatever it is you're going to do. So really tell the people who are reading this, this is my plan. I have a plan. We have a plan. How you will know you are being effective, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the objectives again. We'll talk about SMART objectives. And then tell us a little bit about how long the project is. Is it 6 months? Is it a small one activity? Is it multiple sessions of something? And any important milestones that are attached to the project. I don't know if this will currently happen because I understand the board is quite small, but it used to be that board members would go to the activities. They'd get assigned a grantee to be kind of a mentor, and then they would go and participate and observe and take pictures and things. So that was one of the reasons that had always been important. And then I think Kevin mentioned it, letters of support or memoranda of understanding from partners. So if you're going to be using the school, then you need a letter from the school saying, yes, I know that Joni and her after school Haitian Creole club is going to use one classroom twice a week for 8 weeks, just so we can be assured that you have a plan, that you've done the the legwork necessary to make the project successful, that you're not waiting to get the money and then, then go to the school and say, hey, I really need a classroom. So we really want you to do that before you apply for the grant. And then if the project is continuing for more than 1 year, are you already thinking about what you're going to do? Is this going to be a one-shot deal? Is it going to get incorporated into what you do and how you do it? Are you going to look for other monies? Just a sense of how this is going to continue to serve and benefit the Greenbelt community. Any questions? I've talked a lot. Questions, comments, clarifications? Now is the time to ask. Anybody? Come off mute. No? Okay.
I have a question for, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please, Deb.
Okay. For bullet point 16, for names, roles, qualifications of administrators, would that apply to both the people within the organization as well as, who we could potentially be partnering with, or?
I think if they're gonna have a finger in the project, yes. If not, I don't think so.
Okay.
Kevin, again, I'm not on the board anymore, and I know you're new in your role, so I don't know if you have additional thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine.
Okay, great, cool. Thank you.
Okay, YP asks, do you have to be a vendor in Greenbelt or just serve the community? You don't have to be situated in Greenbelt, but the intention of the grant, as you rightly state, is that it will primarily serve the Greenbelt community. So yeah, we've given grants to organizations outside of Greenbelt, but they do their work in Greenbelt. So yeah, and there was a second part of your question, but it didn't, let me pull it up. Also, do you have to offer all parts of the program in Greenbelt? Can you, Yolanda, explain a little bit more? What do you mean by that?
So let's say that you start the program and you want to go at a different location that may have some of the things that you're looking for to offer the community. Is that possible?
You mean like they would have to be responsible to get themselves to a location outside of Greenbelt?
Yes, like if you want to do a field trip or something.
A field trip. Well, I think if it's a field trip, you're going to want to think about building that into your program description. As someone who writes grants or used to write grants, I don't anymore, I would say you want to explain that in your program description, that is part of this program that's offered in Greenbelt. We will be taking field trips to thus and such a location. And then I think, I don't know, Kevin, if you've had any recent discussions around this. I think that you want to ensure and make it very clear that you will ensure that people can get to the location you want them to get to as part of the field trip. If you're not going to have a bus or a shuttle or something, are you going to ask them to hop on the metro? Do you have metro cards? Do you want to put that into your budget? You know, so really think through, if you're asking participants to get somewhere, that you've thought through how they're going to get there given the population you want to work with. You know, make sure they have transportation and can access it. If it's children, that's a whole other thing, right? Because you need releases and you need, you know, set transportation unless they're going to be transported by their caregivers or custodians. So yeah, you have to think about some of those things. Yeah. Anyone else have any insights, Kevin, Beth, about that? I feel like I answered it okay, but I want to make sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to give for example, one of our recent grant applications was for a food program that I think it's the Methodist Church in North College Park puts out. They have a little kitchen and you can order meals. And anytime you order a meal and pay for it, they'll pay for a meal for someone needy. And they wanted to expand their operation. And so we thought about that a bit, and you know, they demonstrated reasonably well that, you know, a decent proportion of the people who took advantage of this were Greenbelters, and we thought it was worthwhile, even though the place isn't based in Greenbelt itself. It does serve Greenbelters.
Thanks. There was another question I saw in the chat while we were talking about Yolanda's issue. Is this a direct grant or reimbursement? It is a reimbursement. No, yes. Wait, you get your check and then you have to reconcile it. So it's a direct grant, right?
Yeah, you just have to prove you spend it on, you know, you say you're going to spend it on something worthwhile. We give you the money. You know, at the end, we expect a report that, you know, has some demonstration that you did spend it on something worthwhile, and that's it. That's all you owe back from us. You don't pay us back or anything.
I have a question about whether or not the program that we're considering would even be able to qualify. I'm with the Greenbelt Community Garden. For a few years, we've been working, reforesting, sort of creating a food forest area in abandoned gardens that had become forest and trying to reestablish native plants, fruiting plants, and eliminate invasives. But all of this is on city property. Is that something that would complicate it?
Do you have permission to do it?
That was my first question. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have permission to do it and can get a letter, I don't see why not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if, yeah, the city's well aware of it. It's been ongoing for a few years and we've been doing it on a small scale out of our own pockets. But yes, I can get a letter of permission, I think, for sure.
I think
Okay,
that
yeah,
would be the
if-
key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're doing it on someone else's property, then definitely you need, the memorandum of understanding or letter of support or whatever is appropriate.
And would that be from the city manager, from probably, I suppose?
I guess you'd
Um,
have to figure out who is the person who can give permission, right? I imagine it's the city
Yeah,
manager.
I don't think it necessarily has to be the city manager, but the city manager's office,
Exactly.
someone's responsible for,
Well, I
landscaping,
can
green
talk
belt,
to
whatever.
Kevin Driscoll at the Public Works Department. He organizes volunteer things. So he
Yeah.
could probably tell me how to proceed with that. Okay. But the fact that it's to benefit city property isn't a problem.
No.
I don't believe so, because it benefits all of Greenbelt.
Right. I just thought maybe
Yeah.
thinking the city ought to pay for it. That's all.
Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Good luck. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions before we go on? There isn't too much more. There's just some more about the program, project description. Okay, can you advance the slides? Yeah, so again, just this is kind of a repeat, but just you could even use this outline, the objectives of the project and its inspected impact on Greenbelt residents. And Ed, I'm going to use your example that, by recovering, forest, abandoned lands, you really are enhancing the, enabling environment of all of Greenbelt. You're probably, cutting down on invasives. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of other things that are, kind of results from the work that you're doing. So I think, you can make case, I think anyone could make a case of how Greenbelt residents, benefit from the projects you're all going to propose. Again, be sure to say whom. And I think, yeah, in cases like Ed, ages, gender, location, you might want to finesse that a little bit and just say, this is really just an overall benefit to the Greenbelt community, and really not kind of go into ages, genders, and location, unless there are very specific areas you intend to rehabilitate with your grant. I think then you could state where they might be.
It might be helpful, if you're doing all of Greenbelt, east, west, and center, that's probably going to be looked on more favorably than if you're just working in Greenbelt Center or one of the other areas.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and again, I think if it's something that is very small and focused, just saying it's 3 sessions, Yolanda, to your point, it's 3 sessions, one is a field trip, just really explain to folks what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. And again, letters of support. So if someone, Ed, has worked with you in Greenbelt government or knows of that, those are the people I think probably can write letters of support saying this is a really good thing for our community and here's why. And then the project is continuing. I don't think that's necessary anymore. I think this is when we used to consider multi-year funding. But I don't know if that's still the case. Next slide.
Ed's got a question in the chat.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it come up. What groups can be fiscal sponsor? Must they be based in Greenbelt? So it's supposed to be a 501c3. And people usually use Greenbelt-based organizations. I know people have used the cinema. I know people have used Gate, GAC, used each other, back and forth over time. I don't know recently, Kevin, if you've seen who people are using for 501c3. That was back
Yeah, I'm
when I
wondering where
was.
Cheers is based. Is that Greenbelt or not?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'd probably lean toward, places being based in Greenbelt, but if you can show that you're helping make Greenbelt better in some way, we probably can, where the organization is based is not a make or break.
Yeah. You just need to make sure that you get a letter from their CFO or their executive director saying that they do agree to lend the 501c3 status to you to do your project. That's the really key thing there. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, what is a SMART objective? So it's specific, it's measurable with measurement, achievable, relevant, and time-oriented. So when you talk about the objectives of your project, next slide, you want it to be specific. What is it is to be done? You are rehabilitating, forested areas and making them, whatever. You will be working on a project that teaches young people, I don't know, social emotional skills, whatever. Just be very specific. And I'm not talking about anything scientific. Just be specific about what you want to do. How we measure it. How will you measure the project or activity? How will you know you met your objectives? So when we have attendance at our free workshops after school of at least, I don't know, 4 young people, we will feel like we have been successful in promoting social emotional learning or skills in the middle school. Is it achievable? Is it attainable? Be kind to yourself. Don't say, I'm going to get 200 people for this workshop. When we know post-COVID in particular that people, there's various levels of participation, particularly if you're doing in-person things. So make it something that you can get done. If you're going to be offering an activity, just be, say, our goal is to have 20 people participate 3 times in our activity. Something really simple, but really is measurable and achievable. Next slide. And it's relevant. Should it be done? Why? What will be the impact? By beautifying, abandoned spaces in Greenbelt, you're enhancing the well-being of our community. That's an impact. By teaching middle schoolers social emotional learning skills, you're teaching them how to be more peaceful and productive citizens. So I think, you really want to think, what is it to be done and why? And what will be the impact if our activity goes well? If people attend, if people learn something, people will learn about the importance of, clean, safe outdoor spaces. I don't know, but I think, just being really clear that my project will, or our project will have an impact and why. And then time oriented again, if it's 3 or 5 or 6 sessions in a series, just tell us, just let us know, here's this set of activities on social emotional learning. Here's the curriculum we're going to use, or here are the session we're going to offer to young people in the middle school, just so we have a sense. And again, sometimes in the past, community members or Greenbelt Community Foundation board members would attend sometimes just to get a sense of what was being funded. Okay, next slide. So here's some SMART objectives. By April, 100 young people at the Greenbelt Middle School have attended our safety workshop. These are actually from real grants. By the end of the 5 workshops, 25 new entrepreneurs will be trained in money management. 25% of all Greenbelters will donate to the Greenbelt Community Foundation end of the year campaign.
I wish.
Yeah, I wish too, which is why I read that one out loud. So just really, just being really clear, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what our hope outcomes will be. Next slide. So, almost towards the end. Does anyone have any questions before I talk about how Greenbelt Community Foundation, can you go back? Evaluates. So I've sat on the committee that evaluates proposal actually multiple times as well. And these are kind of the lenses, the frame that we use. We look at the proposal. The first thing we do is we look to make sure that all the questions are answered, which is why I really stress filling out the whole application, that a budget is included, and that letters of support or memoranda of understanding are present if need be. Then we look at the value to Greenbelt. What is this going to do for Greenbelt? How is this a value add? The clarity of the plan and the feasibility of the approach. Really, does this make sense? Is it attainable? Is it achievable? Is it doable in the way in which they think it has? I will say, just because it happened twice during my tenure on the board, is that we did have to take money back when people were not able to do their grant. So it has happened. It's not ideal. And we waited a couple of years to see if the project could get done. But twice during my tenure, we had to ask people to return the money because they weren't able to fulfill their agreement, because it is a legal binding agreement once you sign and take the money from GCF.
There's an actual contract you have to sign, yes.
Yeah, you sign a contract. The qualifications of the people and service providers, I'll use that example of the series of sessions on social emotional learning for middle schoolers. We will look to see, are these people who are qualified to be doing this work? Have they done it before? Are they, does it seem like they'll be able to fulfill the grant, vision, the likelihood of success? All of this feeds into each other. And the appropriateness for GCF support. So I urge you to look at the mission of the Greenbelt Community Foundation on its website. It's pretty broad what it supports around education and the arts and just the general well-being of the Greenbelt community. But there are things outside of the scope of Greenbelt Community Foundation that sometimes are not funded because it really isn't within its mission. The potential for sustainability, we think about that because especially if it's something that's really great for the Greenbelt community, doesn't mean you're going to sustain it, but is it an idea that might be really great? And if you can't do it again, maybe we could find other organizations who have the capacity to partner and do it. And then we kind of don't give weight one way or the other. We really look holistically at the evaluation criteria and make sure that we're being fair. Because like Kevin said at the beginning, it's not really a competition. We want to give you money and we want you to do good projects on behalf of the benefit of the Greenbelt community. It's just really making sure that you have a solid plan to do so. Last slide, I believe. Yeah, so like Kevin said, the grant reporting is pretty light. You need to do a final report on your project, including photos, and photos along the way are better still so that the Greenbelt Community Foundation can use them for social media purposes. and fundraising purposes. And then at the very end is an accounting for the expenditures of the grant funds. You do have to do a final accounting to show that how you've used it and that you have been fiduciarily responsible with the money from donors to the Greenbelt Community Foundation, because they're our neighbors and we want them to know that their money is being well used. I think that's it from me. Yeah. So any questions? Here's the email. Kevin's right here along with Beth and maybe now Matthew, who's his first board meeting. So they're around too to answer any questions that you may have. Deb, you've raised a hand and then there's something in the chat.
Yes. Do you have to be a 501(c)(3), or if you're not, if you are a nonprofit, for example, the New Deal Cafe is a nonprofit, but it's not a 501(c)(3). FONCA is a 501(c)(3), and
C3, yeah. You'd have to go through FONCA. Yep, FONCA would have to be the sponsor, the fiscal sponsor for. And the reason this is true is during my tenure on the board, again, it was a while ago, we changed who our fiscal sponsor was, and that is a requirement of them for them to hold our funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing is we do have another fiscal sponsorship. It's a type C with Fractured Atlas, and they are also they function as a 501(c). Can we go through Fractured Atlas also?
As long as you can show that they're a 501(c)(3), yes.
Okay, they're a, what is it called? A fiduciary?
A fiscal sponsor?
Yeah, they're a fiscal sponsorship. Have been with them for 2 years.
Yeah.
We've
Then
done
that
a couple of events and we have to write them up so that they check them out and everything. So we can use either FONCA or Fractured Atlas.
If they're both have their 501(c)(3) status up to date, you absolutely can.
Thank you.
Kevin put something in the chat and then there was a question too.
Responded to the question in the chat, but you might want to read it out.
Yeah.
Can you apply for a grant for multiple programs or just one per period? And our policy is to only support one program from an organization at one time, and that program has to run to completion before we'll give you another grant.
Yeah.
So you have to finish it, you have to give us a report, we have to be happy with the report, and then you can submit another application.
Other questions, comments? Well, I'll turn it back to you, Kevin, then. Thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity.
Okay, are we done with questions? Everybody's happy for now? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thanks to Joni and the board members and Beth, their administrator, for helping out with this. And we look forward. Tatiana, have something? Looks like you raised your hand.
No, I was clapping.
Oh, okay. I can't tell what it's such a small icon. I can't tell. So, okay. Well, if that's it, good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Night.